Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Lara May, a clinical pharmacist specializing in functional medicine, as well as a certified yoga teacher and Reiki master. I run a truly integrative health coaching practice encompassing functional medicine lab testing, yoga and meditation, and a sprinkling of Reiki energy medicine. Join me here on Light Body Radio to break through your health plateau and come into alignment with your natural vitality. Hello and welcome to Light Body Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Lara May, and today I have with me Alicia Kay. She is a self-worth ambassador who has become her own self-motivated hero, choosing to come into this world through a teenage mother who couldn't protect her and a father who didn't want her. She made it her soul's mission to show what is possible when you face life's challenges head on. Driven by grit and hard-won resiliency, Alicia was the first woman in her family to graduate high school, let alone get a master's degree to support herself and show the women of the world that they can accomplish what they can accomplish when they don't settle for less than what they deserve. Now, Alicia is a single mompreneur who teaches women how to reclaim their misplaced power, take ownership of their bodies and their bank accounts as they take their rightful place next to the divine masculine. Assisting thousands of clients over her lifetime with breaking free from patterns of codependency, addiction, and attachment to suffering, she truly is a spiritual force to be reckoned with. Her motto is, "You were born enough. Now let's clear out what's in the way of you believing it." I love that. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for diving right into that. Sometimes I forget like the journey and really all that got me to this place. So it's good to have that reminder.
Yeah. So, do you mind fleshing that out a little bit for us and telling us, how you became, to be passionate about, self-empowering and especially women?
Absolutely. Well, one, I am a woman, and so I know the challenges that we face when it comes to how we feel about ourselves. I think that we are prone to self-criticism, to judgment, to proving ourselves, to trying to find our worth through either our relationships or through our jobs. And it's always this sort of like, what is next? What is next? What is next? And we're on this like rat race, and we're so conditioned to shame ourselves based on what we have or don't have or what we look like, that we kind of get, like we miss the mark, right? When we're so focused on the external. And it really was my own journey of suffering, where I was in an incredibly wounded state throughout my 20s and 30s, and like figuring out like, what is this life all about? Like, why am I in so much pain? Why do I keep repeating these patterns? Why am I attracting these relationships with these men that want to either control me, dominate me, hurt me, overpower me, criticize me, use me? Why is this happening to me? And I became a seeker through looking at my own family lineage and my ancestry and like what the women in my family were doing, and not to judge them or to shame them, but a lot of the women in my family were so used to settling for less, of like, going to men that supported them and not really feeling really great about themselves. And I was like, I had a really huge drive in me to not end up that way and to not be that way. And that really got me on this path to, whether it was getting a college degree in psychology, mental health, working in trauma and addiction, where my first job was in a rape crisis center, where I was working with really, really in domestic violence. It was called the Advocate Program. And all of the women that I worked with had been abused in some way. And I was either like, well, it's happening in my family, it's happened to me, it's happening to all these women. Like, there's got to be a way to figure out how to work with these wounds and to help women feel empowered, to know that no matter where they come from, what they've been through, or what's happened to them, they have the power within them to change it, alchemize it, overcome it, and make something of themselves in this life.
Yeah, and not live in that place of victimhood.
Yes.
Yeah, really get past that sort of, um it's almost like a self-imposed label, I think. And it's cultural, like trauma is real and it happens to, I would say, all of us in some way, shape, or form, just to varying degrees of severity. But you're not letting it hold you back, not letting it keep you down, and not letting it control your life and and the decisions that you're making for yourself. So thank you so much for stepping into that role and saying yes.
Yeah, it's been it's been a hard one journey. But that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I truly believe that if we haven't gone through it in some level in ourselves, like, it's really hard to like pull people up. And I love being that model of like what is possible for you when you choose to work on yourself and to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, so let's start with that wounded self versus the infinite self concept. So, how can someone sort of start to discern the difference? And maybe I move from one to the other, or I mean, I think, and I'm sure you'll go into this area too, but it's like probably like a constant dance between the two, I would imagine.
Yes, always, 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 always the dance. And I will say that, from doing this work for so long, there are some people who don't necessarily have access yet to their infinite self, but it's there. And so I believe, and from doing all my work like with spiritual teachers and things, that as a soul, there's a period of what we would call darkness, or being in an unawakened state where we don't really know what life is all about yet. Like, we're repeating
Mhm.
karmic patterns, we're like living in our wounds. Like you mentioned before, like this victim consciousness is something that we go through in order to evolve out of. And so some people out there they may realize that they're wounded, but may not realize yet that there is a higher self or a soul or inside of them, right? And so I like to kind of describe this as like your intuition, or like the inner wisdom within you, that like that voice or that whisper that knows that you deserve better, or knows that you shouldn't be like self-sabotaging with food, or like
Mhm.
like we have that inner knowing that pulls us toward good, is always the higher infinite self. And the problem is that we're so conditioned to not listen to that or not trust it,
Mhm.
because that means that we may have to change something that we're afraid to change, or that our whole life might get turned upside down. But when we start to pay attention to being like, okay, there's these two, at least simplified, there's these two halves of me. My wounded self always pulls me in the direction where I don't feel that great about myself. It's a very negative self-talk. It's the inner shamer, inner adversary, inner critic. Like, there's lots of labels for that out there. But it's the part of you that doesn't know that you're an infinite being, or in, Western terms, your ego, right? It's the personality self that took on the roles we play, the things that we do to feel loved, to feel accomplished, so that we don't get rejected, right? Its job is to keep you safe, so that
Mhm.
you don't like get criticized, get rejected, get wounded, blow up your life. So at its core, it has a good agenda, but it also will keep you from your purpose path, right? So your higher self always wants what's best for you. It's always coming at you in a very loving voice of like, hey, you probably shouldn't go in the cupboard and like, eat all those snacks, or you probably shouldn't have like lost it on your kid, or whatever it is. It's more gentle, it's more loving, and it's more kind. But we have been trained to not trust that inner voice or trust that inner guidance through the wounding that we've gone through.
Mhm. Well, and I think because we've been taught and told literally to ignore it.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
trust that feeling. Don't even feel that feeling.
Yes.
Like push that down. Just keep going, like you said earlier, going, going, going. And so yeah, it's a lot. I think essentially all of us humans are on this journey of relearning who we are at our core, at our soul self level. And
Absolutely.
it's just a matter of like, okay, well, what is the path? What is the journey that it's going to take to get there? And it's going to be harder than not for a lot of us. So, I mean, we're all challenged, even if we perceive that someone's got it easy. They have been through challenges too. So I think like giving ourselves the grace, and then if we can, bestow that grace on to others, especially if we don't know them intimately,
Of
what
course.
what a practice that, you know, again, it's a practice. So, none of us are perfect, but
I
um,
love that. And it's like it's in I teach that the outer world is a mirror reflection of our inner world. And so if someone is doing something that you judge or you criticize, it's like, okay, well, what am I not acknowledging within myself that I either desire and I want, or that I'm ashamed of and I'm not willing to admit? Right. So
right.
so it,
Yeah, like
it really is, it's like pointing back to you. Anything that you judge, that you shame, that you criticize in another is usually a part of yourself that you're either denying, that your soul wants you to see, whether that's like a woman that makes a ton of money or has a fit body or whatever. It's like, well, I desire that, but I'm denying myself of that. So I'm judging it. Or if, let's say, it is someone in your personal life that is doing something that you judge, like, I don't know what's coming to mind. Um, like, I don't know what's coming, like criticizing their child or criticizing like their
mhm,
kid in a grocery store or something like that. If
mhm.
we judge that, it's like, okay, well, why are we seeing that? And what is the opportunity for growth within us? Do I also do that? Am I not acknowledging that? Why is that in my energy field for me to pay attention to?
Right, like, why is it grabbing my attention to judge it in the first place?
Exactly. And if we
Yeah.
can not only give the other person grace, but then we call in the opportunity to give ourselves grace and compassion too. Right?
Mhm.
We're
Yes.
so awful at that as women. Like, we're so good at giving it to other people, but when it comes to doing it for ourselves, we often miss the mark.
Yeah. So what, are some maybe tools or steps that we can, implement to start working with those parts of ourselves when we do but take that step to bring in that awareness and realize that we are judging and or shaming ourselves. Shame is a huge piece of this too, that I think also, and I'm sure like from the psychological your background in actual psychology and understanding, our habits and our patterns, that why would we keep doing something that's not healthy or productive for us, but yet we stay in that pattern. And I think a lot of it is driven by shame, like that self judgment and that self um, deprecation, I think.
Yeah, I think one is to come at it from a place of open curiosity around, like, isn't it interesting that I just had that reaction or I just had that thought about myself? Right? Versus, I call it getting on the train, right? You don't want to get on the train of like, because the ego, the wounded self, wants to pull in all of this evidence to support itself. So the minute that
Right.
you're on the train and you're in it, you're on it, and you're just going to go for the ride. And that's okay, because we need to do that in order to be able to come back to it later and recognize it and get curious about it. But it's, why did I have that reaction, or why did I have that thought? And when you start to ask right-minded questions, the brain knows how to give you an answer. So people will always ask, like, why am I this way, or why am I doing that? And I encourage them to say, well, what happened the minute before you had that thought about yourself, or what happened the minute before you had that intense emotional reaction, and what was the feeling, what was the belief that was automatic, because it's automatic negative thoughts that are usually led to parts of our personality that are stuck in a more wounded state.
Mhm.
Um, and I use the example all the time of like my child's, right? So children trigger us all the time because they're little mirrors, and they tend to bring up stuff in us, or partners. If you don't have a child, like the same thing, right? Relationships are meant for us to evolve and for us to work through some of our wounds. But the automatic negative thought that you have is never the truth. It's always the lie, right? So one of my triggers is this: if my child is ignoring me, then I'm like, oh, he's ignoring me. well, is he really ignoring me, or is he just really caught up in his video game and he's having a good time and he's just being a kid? But I know
Mhm.
that one of my wounds is the invisible child, right? So because of my upbringing and things, I was invisible to people around me. And so that will send me from 0 to 10 in zero point 0.2 seconds. But because I know that about myself, I'm able to, calm. Is that true? I am able to extract it, explore it. So I encourage people to say, what was my reaction? What was my thought? Um, you know, how do I behave and how do I feel about myself when I have that thought? And if this is the case, how old do I feel when I'm acting and
Mhm.
when I'm thinking that way? And where has this been a theme in my life? Right? Like when was the first time that I had this thought about myself? When was the first time I had this thought about somebody else? And if we are able to trace it back and we're conscious enough about our history, then we can usually pinpoint the point of origin or like the root cause of where that stinking thinking came into our being, because it is not the true self. It is always the wounded self. And our soul is actually asking us to pay attention to that so we can evolve out of it and not think and feel that way any longer.
Mhm.
Did that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. I love
Okay.
it. Yeah. So, so I love too that you started to sort of give sub context to what I see as like the overarching archetype is the wounded child.
Yeah.
And I first learned about this through the work of Carolyn Mace,
Mm.
but I know Carl Jung is also, sort of like the quintessential or like the founder of even the concept of archetypes and like really flushing them out and giving them, definition and depth for us to identify with. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I know there's the abandoned child, there's, like you said, the invisible. I'm sure there's more. Can you shed a little light on those?
There's like I think the angry child, the wounded child, the invisible child, the abandoned, forgotten child, um, the abused child, um, and I think I might be missing one, but that covers the basis.
Yeah. Oh, I think there's also the orphan, and I don't know if orphan and
Yeah.
abandoned are the same, but I
Yeah, I
do
think that's
remember also
the forgotten, the unwanted
yeah,
child.
yeah.
And we tend to have that deep within us just because our parents, like most of us came in the world through wounded parents that couldn't give us every single thing that we needed in order to thrive psychologically because, I mean, it transfers all the way back in our history,
Right. Yeah, I
right?
mean,
And I
that's
think it is impossible one to have all of our needs met. I think in some
mhm,
ways uh we came into this world to do this work, and so it is important to know what your child types are or how that runs the show, right? Like I have a part of mine, a child that's in fantasy all the time. Like when I was in more of my wounded state and I didn't have as much security within myself or much self-worth, I used to live in fantasy about somebody coming to rescue me, or like
mhm,
from
mhm,
from this world, right? Like this
mhm.
guy that's gonna come in and sweep me off my feet and is gonna take care of me and make me feel secure and like give me the life of my dreams. And then it's like, Alicia, you're supposed to create that for yourself.
Well, I mean, that's what Disney tells us our entire childhood, right?
No,
That
I know. And I had it so strong for so long until it was like spirit kept working on me, being like, no, no, Alicia, that's not the way.
yeah. Well, I find this fascinating. So the other thing that I feel like, and maybe it's just, I know it's been around for a long time and it's not new, but I feel like maybe it's having a renaissance or resurgence. And that, again, that just could be me and my perception because it's more front of mind in my own personal work, but it's also shadow work, So again, like being willing to look at and own these pieces of our shadow and realize that we all have them.
Yes.
And when someone, puts that mirror in front of your face, even though it's not going to feel good, and you definitely don't want to, look back at that image, it's important to, again, like give yourself the time, the space, the grace, the forgiveness to look at that for yourself, because I
Yeah.
feel like that is really, where we let that light come in is where we start to find that growth and the change that we want to create in our lives.
Absolutely. One of my teachers told me a long time ago, and it makes complete sense, is that we can't see the label of our own jar, right? So people have to
Mm-hmm.
mirror that to us, and if
Mm-hmm.
we're not willing to look at it, we can't evolve out of it. Like we stay in it. And when we stay in those patterns, when we stay in those, you know, I don't want to say negative ways of being, but like lower vibrational ways of
Mm-hmm.
existing and suffering,
Yeah.
then we continue to struggle.
Yeah. I mean, and there's an aspect too of sort of the school of thought that I was taught through my life coaching curriculum is that, you don't technically have to change it if you don't want to. If it's something that you like, even, but at least own it, like at
Yes.
least be aware of it. And so, you're the participant, again, not the victim. It's not happening to you. Recognize that you're the orchestra conductor for or the engineer of the train, or whatever metaphor we want to use, like you're running the show. And
Yes. I
it's
tell people that
yeah.
all the time. It's like you're the creator, right? You're better off saying, we'll just use the example of like, I don't want to work out today, right? But or it's like what people will say is they'll make up all these excuses of like, oh, well, my kid did this and this happened and I didn't get enough sleep. Like they'll go in this mental state of like, making up all this mind drama. And I'm like, you're better off taking ownership of it. Like, I just didn't want to do it today. Right?
Right.
Like, just
And that's
own it,
okay.
accept
Yeah.
it, be responsible for it. Like, don't stay in it. Don't stay in the mind drama around why you didn't do the thing that you said you were gonna do. Let's
Yeah.
just take ownership of the fact that I'm the creator, and if I wanna change my mind right now, I have the right to do that.
Yeah, or even, like, in a relationship dynamic, man, I was a real B word to that person today, like
Yeah.
but, like, recognizing it means that you can also choose to show up in a different way later. You can choose to apologize if you feel bad for, showing up and as not your best self. I mean, we're all
Completely.
there, we all do it, but it's a matter, again, like, that awareness, it's, that first step to any change is the space for awareness, I feel like.
Yes, and accepting all parts of yourself. What
Mhm.
we wanna get rid of, what we wanna pretend isn't there, we can't work with it then. Yeah, and I think it's so important to have radical responsibility and accountability for how we're showing up because most of us didn't get that modeled to us.
Oh, no.
And so it's so important that we do that for the people we love, that we care about, for our kids, because that's how we're going to create change, right? Is like being the change you want to see in the world.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. You actually have to show up and make the choice
Exactly.
to be it. So I wanna, move into this concept of addiction to suffering,
Mhm.
and how we can get past that, and then how can we even, like, so we have already said that awareness is the first step to change, but how do we even become aware of our addiction to suffering? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like that has to be, like, a big, like, whammy mirror in the face moment.
It is, and it has been, and it's really what I've been working on pretty succinctly for the last 3 years. And one, we have to be so familiar of our patterns and the things that we're doing and the things that we're saying to ourselves that are causing us to suffer, right? So if I use an example of my own life, I have a super strong perfectionist part of my personality that has like the ability to produce and to work and to go and to go and to go and to go. And that evolved out of like my poverty mindset, like growing up in lack, growing up in scarcity, like constantly moving, not having enough. So a part of me developed to work really hard and to try to prove myself. And that in itself it's a good quality, but it causes so much suffering for women, right? Because it's a very masculine side of our personality that just creates struggle and feeling like we're not doing enough. right?
Mhm.
So that automatically it's the addiction to proving, the addiction to performing, the addiction to producing that creates the struggle. And so we've been raised in a grind culture that that has made us believe that that's how we become successful. And I believe that we are evolving out of that, right? When we are attached to our higher
Mhm.
self, when we're attached to source, God, creator, consciousness, whatever universe, whatever you choose to call that entity that is bigger than you, that's pulling you in a direction, like we are actually being called to change the way that we have been working, the way that we have been taking out of alignment with our feminine flow and our intuition and rest and rejuvenation.
Mhm.
And when we don't allow ourselves to do those things, like rest becomes resistance, right? Which creates suffering. So instead of working in that mindset, which we're all familiar with, what if we invite in the new possibility and the way that spirit wants us to be living our lives is like, this gets to be easy, right? Like, what if I get to work in a way where I actually do what I desire and it brings joy to my life and I actually get to play and feel fulfilled instead of it being a task that I have to complete or a job that needs to get done? Right. When we're
Mhm.
living in that side of our nervous system, we always feel burnt out. We always feel like we didn't do enough. We always feel like there's more to do. And we're never in the moment enjoying our lives. So it's
Mhm.
really inviting in the higher level of consciousness of like allowing opportunities to come to us, allowing things to come to us because we're following the desire of our heart, which will always produce more joy, more ease, more happiness, more fulfillment, instead of the ways that we've been taught to do things, which will always produce more suffering.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and even, like, being honest with yourself about, okay, maybe you're in a job that you hate. I mean,
Yes.
a lot of people out there are. But saying, "Okay, I might be in this job that I hate, but I am choosing to go to work today. I technically don't have to go to work." I
Yeah.
mean, if you don't go to work, maybe some bills don't get paid, but that's still a choice that you're making. And
Mhm.
so when we shift that, again, that thought pattern, that perspective of this is a choice I'm making, you're shifting to that empowerment piece. And
100%.
then I found also that when I've done that for myself in the past, then I am more motivated and inspired to put my resume together, start looking for a different job, like be more deliberate with how I'm creating my day and my time. So like, yes, I'm going to go to work, but what am I going to do after work that's going to like really like be that cherry on top of the cupcake part of the day? Or maybe even like how I'm showing up when I'm at work. So instead of showing up with this miserable attitude because you don't want to be there, if you shift it to like, oh, I'm choosing to be here, then that also means that you get to choose how you are while you're there. And
Absolutely.
that can be so powerful because other people around you pick up on what you're putting down in terms of your energetic space and your being. And
Absolutely.
so it can be really dramatic, and I've seen it in coworkers' lives, in clients' lives, in my own life. So I would just put that out there, to maybe, put be that as a like a little challenge for you to get just that
Yeah.
tiny little shift of
It
I
did, I
choose
know.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. I call that taking your power back,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
when you take your power back and you take ownership of this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, then you feel less um like someone's controlling you versus you're in control. Right? I'm
Mhm.
in control of my choices. And if anyone out there is experiencing burnout, you hate your job, you hate your relationship, whatever it is in the moment, I encourage people to write a mission statement. Right?
Mm.
This is my mission for doing what I'm doing, even if I don't like it right now. Because if you can do that, if you can really, expand out at the bigger picture, it makes the day-to-day much more manageable. Right? Like yes, I'm going to work one to get paid or whatever is the case. Maybe I need health insurance right now for my family, or it doesn't matter what that is, but if you
Mhm.
really have a mission and you take charge and ownership of that mission, then you kind of open up other opportunities to look at it differently, like you said, right? I choose to go to work right now, or I'm choosing to stay in this relationship right now, because
Mhm.
there's obviously things that I need to learn, and there's things that I need to accomplish or grow or evolve out of. And that's where I am in this moment. But the only thing in life that's constant is change. This isn't permanent. I'm not going to stay here forever. I know myself. I trust myself. I'm capable of getting myself out of this situation. So
Yeah.
let's just make the best of it while I'm in it.
Well, and I think too, this might take it in a little bit into the woo-woo aspect, but it is also true because I mean, the law of attraction is a real thing.
Yes.
So when you make these shifts, and I love that mission statement because now you're putting out more of a different vibration out into the world. And so you're opening yourself up for that invitation
That's
to
right.
the universe also to bring you more of whatever that mission is. And it's most likely going to look completely different than what you're doing now and even what you expect. I've found a lot of times that, I'll put something out to the universe of, I want to do this with my career, make this sort of impact. And I think I know what I want it to look like. But then as it starts to unfold and I start attracting, like new resources, new people, mentors, all the things, then it evolves into something that's usually better than you can ever imagine. Um,
Yes.
so I would also just like, again, like to keep keep it yourself open. I mean, because you never
Yeah.
know what you can bring in, and it's most likely going to be amazing.
Yes. And I feel like we are not always very clear on what it is that we want and what it is that we desire. And I always teach that desire is divine. If you look at every single thing in your life, to your first boyfriend, to the movie that you used to watch, to the food you used to eat, the foundation of that is always desire, right? So when it comes to the line of work, when it comes to what I want to do or how I want to earn an income or produce in this world, what is it that I really desire? Like, what is in my heart? And get very clear on what it is that you want, what you desire, and what you want your life to look like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Instead of buying into a system that wants to keep you sick, of go to work, get a paycheck, get a 401k, get health insurance for a false sense of security that you're never going to grow out of.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, oh man, I just lost my train of thought. But yes.
Right? Because the universe can't, we have free will. The universe can't give you what you want if you don't say what it is.
Exactly. So again, I know what it was. Oh, again, well, so it comes back also to like this is a practice, and if this is completely new to you, allow yourself that safe space to really look at your desires and what you want without judgment. So,
Yes.
like, if what you want is to cultivate a beautiful family on this planet, do that. Like no one ever said. Also, I feel like as women in this Western world that we're constantly like pulled and tugged and judged for, maybe we're a woman that doesn't want to go to work, that wants to stay home with her family and raise
Mhm.
beautiful, healthy children. Or maybe you are a career woman and you want to do both. Like all of it's fine, all of it's amazing. Just own it and don't judge yourself for it. Because
Absolutely.
as soon as you decide to step into whatever that energy is that you want, then that's when the magic and the power really happens, I think.
Yeah, we have to become an energetic match for what we want first before the universe can put it into our lives. And if you've attracted that job, you attracted that relationship, or you're in that, it's like, okay, well, what part of me was an energetic match for that? Right now, like,
Mhm.
what am I being called to look at? What am I being called to work through? What am I being called to upgrade or step out of? I hear a lot of people that I work with that say, well, I have these desires, but I don't deserve them. Right? Like, so
Yeah.
that is the wounded self talking, because that's not the true self, right? The true self, the infinite self, always wants to give you exactly what you want and knows that you're an infinite creator being. And so there's a point of interest to pay attention to. Well,
Mhm.
where in my life did I learn that I don't deserve what I want? How did that programming get put into my nervous system and into my body that I've adopted that belief to be my own?
Right, because I
Right.
would say even the concept of deserving is a completely human construct. So
Absolutely.
if you believe that we are energetic beings having a physical experience, then, like when we release these physical meat suits that we call bodies, then our souls will go on. So at what point, and when there's no body and there's no planet Earth, there is no concept of deserve. So like,
Right. It's a
like
human thing.
yeah, I think there's again, like just yet another thing that we have to like uncondition ourselves to think that, there's, because again, that brings in like the whole, like the polarity of, the world that we've created for ourselves. Deserve, don't deserve, worthy, unworthy.
Right. Good, bad, right, wrong, like
Yeah.
all these constructs that make us suffer, right? That's the addiction to suffering, as evaluating the
Mm-hmm.
self of, was I a good girl today? Was I a bad girl? Did I spend too much? Did I save enough? Like it's so, did I eat well? Did I not eat well? Like all of these things that we use to evaluate ourselves to either prove that we're good and prove that we're worthy, or prove that we're bad and prove that we're unworthy of what we want and what we desire. But if we remove all of that and we really get down deep and just take ownership of, I'm worthy because I'm deserving because I say a child of God, or made of the stuff of the universe, or made of
Mhm.
stardust, or whatever language you want to use that fits well with your soul, is like when you get to the bottom of, I am that I am because I am, and that's enough,
Mhm.
then that evaluating self starts to become less extreme, and your ego wounded self starts to merge with your soul infinite self, and you start to feel like, I'm the magician, I'm the creator of my life now,
Yeah.
because that old way of being served me but isn't where I'm staying. Right? What needs to die in me so something new can be reborn? We are always evolving, we're always growing, we're always leveling up, unless we choose to stay the same because we have free will.
Right. And also allowing yourself that space for grief too, if
Mm,
it's something that, that's been in your life for a long time, whether
yeah,
it's, a person, place, or thing, that recognizing, okay, maybe it's time to let that go. It's not serving me anymore. And it's okay to grieve that. It's okay to be sad. Like, again, like giving your space for all the emotions,
all
you
of it.
know,
All of it. I feel like
and
the
just,
spiritual
yeah.
community wants to say everything is love and light, and we should always be at a high, and we should always be feeling okay. But one of the things that I love to preach about is that, like, you can only, your wings can only expand as far into the heavens as your roots go down into the depths of hell, right? You have to feel all of it. You have to let yourself
Mhm.
experience all of it, because that's where the true depth and trust in yourself comes from, is feeling the gamut of all of your emotions and not gaslighting yourself for what you're feeling or how you're showing up.
Right.
There's
Yeah. I
so
mean,
much there to work through, and it's all good, it's all perfect, and it's all divine, right? We can't screw it up.
it might feel like we are, but again, just again, I think as saying like instead of labeling ourselves a screw up or telling ourselves, man, I really screwed this one up, just like, okay, well, it is what it is. Now I get to make the choice of what comes next.
Yes,
And maybe if maybe we did screw up a relationship, like, do we want to step back and do we want to apologize, or do we want, like, however we want to own our side of the street and our participation in it. Whether you do that privately or with another person, even if you at minimum do it privately, even just that allows for huge growth and the practice of self-love, and
exactly.
providing yourself that space to even imagine something different and different choices and moving forward.
Yeah, and I think, what's coming to me is like the concept of like forgiveness of self.
Mhm.
It's like none of us are perfect. None of us have it completely all figured out. We're all on our own individual, unique journeys. And at the end of the day, if we don't learn how to forgive ourselves and give ourselves grace, we're not going to be able to do that for others.
Right. Well, on that note, tell us where we can find you and how people can work with you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's a great question. I actually am really excited to be launching my own podcast coming up next week. It's called the Alive and Awake podcast with Alicia on Spotify and Apple. So we'll be diving into more stuff like this, practical, mystical, spiritual concepts for how to do that inner work. But if you're interested in doing any individual work with me, you can find me at aliciakcoaching.com on my website. I have an incredible 6-month container. It's a signature program where we do individual work together, along with breath work, journaling, working with parts of the personality, clearing out some of that emotional pain so that you can really be an energetic match for what you desire and what you want for your future. And that program is called Breakthrough to Bliss. So, bliss is the state of being that you get to when you just know that everything's going to be okay, that you're okay, you know your worth, you know your value, you know how to figure out life, and you ultimately trust yourself and trust spirit to guide you, which is a great way to kind of be in this world, right? We can't stop the hard from coming, but we can know what to do when it does come.
Yes. Oh,
So,
beautiful.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, is there anything else before we wrap up that you want to bring forward or touch on?
I forgot to mention my my free guide. So if you're not
Okay.
interested in the podcast or one-on woodwork, you can always go to my website and you can download my free guide, how to dismantle the 3 most unhelpful beliefs that we all carry as human beings,
Mm.
which is it's my fault, I'm not good enough, and something is wrong with me. So that's an amazing guide for you to dive into if you feel called to just drop in there and see what it says to how to work with the wounded self in your brain.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. I'm excited to listen to your podcast also. And it is the Alive and Awake with Alicia podcast. So definitely, guys, check that out next week. So, right, it's just for context because things are funny in the podcast world.
Yeah.
Today's
June
the
3rd,
28th.
June
Yeah.
3rd, 2024. It will be out.
Yes.
Yes.
So if
Yes.
you're
Yes.
hearing this after June 3rd, then you will be able to find it live out there. So again, thank you so much, Alicia. I really appreciate you and everything you're doing.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys, we will catch you in the next episode. Be safe and be happy and be well.